Hey, hey, hey. You know what time it is. Yes! Get into it! Get into it! Yes! First try. Whew. Hi, y'all. I hope everybody's having a lovely Saturday night. Welcome to Storytime with Chris, Instagram edition. And we are back with The Last Unicorn. And we're going to continue where we left off. Hi, Chuck. Hi. Thank you for showing me love, sweetie. I appreciate you. I see you working out on Krav Maga. I see you. You get me motivated to try, but I'm not good with hand-to-hand combat, so I'm gonna stick to my saber, epee, foil, and bow and bokuto. So, still keep up the good work. And thank you so much. You have a great night too. Thank you. I'm rooting for you too. Oh, this is great. This is the beauty of social media to aspect because you get to connect with friends who are near and far away, and it's nice. We're gonna catch up. We definitely are gonna catch up. And hi, Matt. Thanks for watching. So, as always, I do not own the music that is playing in the background, which is "The Old Tree," which is a relaxing harp melody by Peter B. Helland. Definitely check them out. YouTube is amazing. But I had two things I had to show you all before I was going to get started. And it's October. It is spooky season. And we need to get into it. But hold on one second. Okay, I'm back. Okay. So, if anybody remembers from last year, I know it was the first year of COVID, but this is still has to be one of my favorite Halloween books of all time. It gives a very fun yet educational fictional trip through time about the history of Halloween and how it has affected different cultures and how it is celebrated. The Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury, who is a Midwestern writer. I'm pretty sure Ray Bradbury is not from Ohio, but I know he's from the Midwest. I'm gonna definitely have to double check specifically where he was born and raised. But this is a Midwest story. I love it. It is chock full of stuff that reminds me of my home back in Cleveland. It's just an amazing, fun, spooky story that is about friendship and adventure and, lifting the veil off the supernatural. And what I'm going to do is what I did last year is read this 3 days before Halloween, and then Halloween night I would finish the story. So if anybody has any specific spooky Halloween time stories that you want me to read, please message me. Another book I'll be reading in the next few days is a classic, Where the Wild Things Are. And it just seems like a fun little cute adventure, spooky season, which I never saw the live action movie. And for those who have seen it, please respectfully comment and let me know what you thought about. Because I've never seen it. I heard it was okay, but I love this story. And I love the author because Maurice Sendak also, if I'm not mistaken, illustrated the very horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day, which is another really good book I want to read on here. The next book that we're definitely reading, because by the way, both of these books are from Dark Star Bookstore in Yellow Springs, Ohio, right off of Xenia Avenue in downtown Yellow Springs. Dark Star Bookstore. Please check them out on Facebook, Instagram. They also have a website. If you're looking for quality used books, journals, agendas, calendars, comics, manga, Studio Ghibli merchandise, children's books, herbalist books, new, old, they got it. And they are amazing. I love the staff there. They have always been super gracious to me in the time that I've been over there living in Yellow Springs. So this is the big Halloween party, which they also have the original Bearstein Bears Halloween book that I am going to be getting fairly soon. So yes, get into it. We're going to be reading these as time goes on. Which also brings me to another, ouch, surprise. I'm so sorry, y'all. Ah! Whew! So, if you remember, a while ago, I read the true story of the Three Little Pigs. But now I'm going to switch it up and read this. Now, if you were a 90s kid and you grew up, like, having your teacher read this to you, you had an awesome childhood, just saying. The Stinky Cheese Man and the other fairly stupid tales. Which, kids who are watching, stupid is not a nice word to use. Foolish is a better term. But you gotta read the titles. Anyway, so those are what are on the menu for the next coming days, besides reading the Redwall series and reading The Last Unicorn. So without further ado, I will begin. Chapter 4. Like a newborn child, the magician wept for a long time before he could speak. "The poor old woman," he whispered at last. The unicorn said nothing, and Schmendrick raised his head and stared at her in a strange way. A gray morning rain was beginning to fall, and she shone through it like a dolphin. "No," she said, answering his eyes. "I can never regret." Which is really kind of sad, considering she's an immortal creature. She's not able to regret. She doesn't know what that feels like. And we will find out why. He was silent, crouched by the road in the rain, drawing his soaked cloak close around his body until he looked like a broken black umbrella. The unicorn waited, feeling the days of her life falling around her with the rain. "I can feel sorrow," she offered gently, "but it's not the same thing." When Schmendrick looked at her again, he had managed to pull his face together, but it was still struggling to escape from him. "Where will you go now?" he asked. Where were you going when she took you?" "I was looking for my people," the unicorn said. "Have you seen the magician? They are wild and sea-white like me." Schmendrick shook his head gravely. "I've never seen anyone like you, not while I was awake. There were supposed to be a few unicorns left when I was a boy, but I knew only one man who had ever seen one. They are surely gone, lady, all but you. When you walk, you make an echo where they used to be." "No," she said, "for others have seen them." It gladdened her to hear that there had still been unicorns as recently as the magician's childhood, she said. "A butterfly told me of the Red Bull, and the witch spoke of King Haggard, so I am going wherever they are, to learn whatever they know. Can you tell me where Haggard is king?" The magician's face almost got away, but he caught it and began to smile very slowly, as though his mouth had turned to iron. He bent into it the proper shape and time, but it was an iron smile. "I can tell you a poem," he said. "Where all the hills are lean as knives and nothing grows, not leaves nor lives. Where hearts are sour as boiled beer, Haggard is the ruler here." "I will know when I get there then," she said, thinking that he was mocking her. "Do you know any poems about the Red Bull?" "There are none," Schmendrick answered. He rose to his feet, pale and smiling. "About King Haggard I know only what I have heard," he said. "He's an old man, stingy as late November, who rules over a barren country by the sea. Some say that the land was green and soft once before Haggard came, but he touched it and it withered. There's a saying among farmers when they look on a field lost to a fire or locust or the wind, as blighted as Haggard's heart. They say also that there are no lights in the castle and no fires, and that he sends his men out to steal chickens and bedsheets and pies from windowsills. The story has it that the last time King Haggard laughed, the unicorn stamped her foot." Schmendrick said, "As for the Red Bull, I know less than I have heard, for I have heard too many tales, and each argues with another. The bull is real, the bull is a ghost, the bull is Haggard himself when the sun goes down. The bull was in the land before Haggard, or it came with him, or it came to him. It protects him from raids and revolutions and saves him from the expense of arming his men. He keeps a prisoner in his own castle. It is the devil to whom Haggard has sold his soul. It is a thing he sold his soul to possess. The bull belongs to Haggard. Haggard belongs to the bull. The unicorn felt a shiver of sureness spreading through her, winding from the center like a ripple. In her mind, the butterfly piped again. They passed down all the roads long ago, and the red bull ran close behind them and covered their footprints. She saw white forms blowing away in a billowing wind and yellow horns shaking. "I will go there," she said. "Magician, I owe you a boon, for you set me free. What would you have of me before I leave you?" Schmendrick's long eyes were glinting like leaves in the sun. "Take me with you." She moved away, cool and dancing, and she did not answer. The magician said, "I might be useful. I know the way into Haggard's country, and the languages of the lands between here and there." The unicorn seemed very near to vanishing into the sticky mist, and Schmendrick hurried on. "Besides, no wanderer was ever the worse for a wizard's company, even a unicorn. Remember the tale of the great wizard Nikos? Once in the woods he beheld a unicorn sleeping with his head in the lap of a giggling virgin, while 3 hunters advanced with drawn bows to slay him for his horn. Nikos had only a moment to act. With a word and a wave, he changed the unicorn into a handsome young man who woke, and seeing the astonished bowmen gaping there, charged upon them and killed them all. His sword was of a twisted, tapering design, and he trampled the bodies when the men were dead." "And the girl?" the unicorn asked. "Did he kill the girl, too?" "No, he married her. He said she was only a nameless child angry at her family, and that all she really needed was a good man, which he was, then and always, for even Nikos could never give him back his first form. He died old and respected. Of a surfeit of violets, some say, he could never get enough violets. There were no children." The story lodged itself somewhere in the unicorn's breath. "The magician did him no service, but great ill," she said softly. "How terrible it would be if all my people had been turned human by well-meaning wizards. Exiled, trapped in burning houses, I would sooner find that the Red Bull had killed them all." "Where you are going now," Schmendrick answered, "few will mean you anything but evil, and a friendly heart, however foolish, may be as welcome as water one day. Take me with you, for laughs, for luck, for the unknown. Take me with you." The rain faded as he spoke. The sky began to clear, and the wet grass glowed like the inside of a seashell. The unicorn looked away, searching through a fog of kings for one king, and through a snowy glitter of castles and palaces for one built on the shoulders of a bull. "No one has ever traveled with me," she said, "but then no one has ever caged me before, or took me for a white mare, or disguised me as myself. Many things seem determined to happen to me for the first time, and your company will surely not be the strangest of them, nor the last, so you may come with me if you like, though I wished you had asked me for some other reward." Schmendrick smiled sadly. "I thought about it." He looked at his fingers. The unicorn saw the half-moon marks where the bars had bitten him. "But you could never have granted my true wish." "There it is," the unicorn thought, feeling the first spidery touch of sorrow on the inside of her skin. "That is how it will be to travel with a mortal all the time." "No," she replied. "I could not turn you into something you are not. No more than the witch could. I cannot turn you into a true magician." "I didn't think so," Schmendrick said. "It's all right. Don't worry about it." "I'm not," the unicorn said. A blue jay swooped low over them on that first day of their journey and said, "Well, I'll be a squab under glass," and flapped straight home to tell his wife about it. She was sitting on the nest singing to their children in a dreary drone. "Spiders and soulbugs and beetles and crickets, slugs from the roses and ticks from the thickets, grasshoppers, snails, and a quail's egg or two, all to be regurgitated for you. Lullaby, lullaby, swindles and schemes, flying's not near as much fun as it seems." "Saw a unicorn today," the blue jay said as he lit. "You didn't see any supper, I noticed," his wife replied coldly. "I I hate a man who talks with his mouth empty. Baby, a unicorn! The jay abandoned his casual air and hopped up and down on the branch. I haven't seen one of those since the time— You've never seen one, she said. This is me, remember? I know what you've seen in your life, and what you haven't. The jay paid no mind. There was a strange-looking party in black with her, he rattled. They were going over Cat Mountain. I wonder if they were heading for Haggard's country. He cocked his head to the artistic angle. Excuse me, that first one, his wife. What a vision for old Haggard's breakfast, he marveled. A unicorn coming to call, bold as you please, on his dismal door. I'd give anything to see. I suppose the two of you didn't spend the whole day watching unicorns, his wife interrupted with a click of her beak. At least I understand that she used to be considered quite imaginative in matters of spare time. She advanced on him, her neck feathers ruffling. Honey, I haven't even seen her, the blue jay began, and his wife knew that he hadn't and wouldn't dare, but she baited him one anyway. She was one woman who knew what to do with a slight moral edge. Don't mess with this bird. She is not for play. Okay. Hi Phil. Love you. Hi Liziah. The unicorn and the magician walked through the spring, over Soft Cat Mountain and down into a violet valley where apple trees grew. Beyond the valley were low hills as fat and docile as sheep, lowering their heads to sniff at the unicorn in wonder as she moved among them. After these came the slower heights of summer, and the baked plains where the air hung shiny as candy. Together she and Schmendrick forded rivers, scrambled up and down brambly banks and bluffs, and wandered in woods that reminded the unicorn of her home, though they could never resemble it, having known time. So has my forest now, she thought, but she told herself that it did not matter, that all would be as before when she returned. At night, while Schmendrick slept the sleep of a hungry, footsore magician, the unicorn crouched awake, waiting to see the vast form of the Red Bull come charging over the moon. At times she caught what she was sure was his smell, a dark, sly reek easing through the night, reaching out to find her. Then she would spring to her feet with a cold cry of readiness, only to find 2 or 3 deer gazing at her with a respectful distance. Deer love and envy unicorns. Once, a buck in his second summer, prodded forward by his giggling friends, came quite close to her and mumbled without meeting her eyes, "You are very beautiful. You're just as beautiful as our mother said." The unicorn looked silently back at him, knowing that he expected no answer from her. The other deer snickered and whispered, "Go on, go on." Then the buck raised his head and cried out swiftly and joyously, "But I know someone more beautiful than you." He wheeled and dashed away in the moonlight, and his friends followed him. The unicorn lay down again. Now and then in their journey they came to a village, and there Schmendrick would introduce himself as a wandering wizard, offering, as he cried in the streets, "To sing for my supper, to bother you just a little bit, to trouble your sleep ever so slightly, and to pass on." Few were the towns where he was not invited to stable his beautiful white mare and stay the night, and before the children went to bed he would perform in the market square by lantern light. He never actually attempted any greater magic than making dolls talk and turning soap into sweets, and even these trifling sorceries sometimes slipped from his hands. But the children liked him, and their parents were kind with supper, and the summer evenings were lithe and soft. Ages after, the unicorn still remembered the strange chocolate stable smell and Schmendrick's shadow dancing on walls and doors and chimneys in the leaping light. In the mornings they went on their way, Schmendrick's pockets full of bread and cheese and oranges, and the unicorn pacing beside him, sea white in the sun, sea green in the dark of the trees. His tricks were forgotten before he was out of sight, but his white mare troubled the nights of many a villager, and there were women who woke weeping from dreams of her. One evening they stopped in a plump, comfortable town where even the beggars had double chins and the mice waddled. Schmendrick was immediately asked to dinner with the mayor and several of the rounder councilmen, and the unicorn, unrecognized as always, was turned loose in a pasture where the grass grew sweet as milk. Dinner was out of doors, at a table in the square, for the night was warm and the mayor was pleased to show off his guest. It was an excellent dinner, which is what I'm going to be making after this. Oh, excuse me. During the meal, Schmendrick told stories of his life as an errant enchanter, filling it with kings and dragons and noble ladies. He was not lying, merely organizing events more sensibly, and so his tales had a taste of truth even to the canny councilman. Not only they, but all manner of folk passing in the street leaned forward to understand the nature of the spell that opened all locks if properly applied, and there was not one but lost a breath at sight of the marks of the magician's fingers. "A souvenir of my encounter with a harpy," Schmendrick explained calmly. "They bit me." "And were you never afraid?" a young girl wondered softly. The mayor made a shooing noise at her, but Schmendrick lit a cigar and sighed at her through smoke. "Fear and hunger have kept me young," he replied. He looked around the circle of dozing, rumbling councilmen and winking wildly at the girl. The mayor was not offended. "True," he said, caressing his dinner with licked fingers. "We do lead a good life here, or if we don't, I don't know anything about it. I sometimes think a little fear, a little hunger might be good for us, sharpen our souls, so to speak. That's why we always welcome strangers with tales to tell and songs to sing. They broaden our outlook and set us to looking inward." He yawned and stretched himself, grumbling. One of the councilmen suddenly remarked, "My word, look at that pasture!" Heavy heads turned on nodding heads, and all saw the villagers' cows and sheep and horses clustered at the far end of the field, staring at the magician's white mare, who was placidly cropping the cool grass. No animal made a noise. Excuse me. Even the pigs and geese were as silent as ghosts. A crow called once far away, and his cry drifted through the sunset like a single cinder. "Remarkable!" the mayor murmured. "Most remarkable!" "Yes, isn't she?" the magician agreed. "If I were to tell you some of the offers I've had for her—" "The interesting thing," said the councilman who had spoken, "is that they don't seem to be afraid of her. They have an air of awe, as though they were doing her some sort of reverence." "They say what you've forgotten how to see." Schmendrick had drunk his share of red wine, and the young girl was staring at him with eyes both sweeter and shallower than the unicorn's. He thumped his glass on the table and told the smiling mayor, "She is a rarer creature than you dare to dream. She is a myth, a memory, a will-o'-the-wisp, wail-o'-the-wisp, if you remember, if you hungered." His voice was lost in a gust of hoofbeats and the clamor of children. A dozen horsemen dressed in autumn rags came galloping into the square, howling and laughing, scattering the townsfolk like marbles. They formed a line and clattered around the square, knocking over whatever came in their way and shrieking incomprehensible brags and challenges to no one in particular. One rider rose up in his saddle, bent his bow, and shot the weathercock off the church spire. Another snatched up Schmendrick's hat, jammed it on his own head, and rode on roaring. Some swung screaming children to their saddlebows, and others contented themselves with wineskins and sandwiches. Their eyes gleamed madly in their shaggy faces, and their laughter was like drums. So, a weathercock, or a weatherbird is another way of calling it, is a device that is implemented through the wind currents. It's typically on a high point on a house or a building, and it just shows you the direction of the wind, or like sometimes they'll have a barometer installed where it'll tell you the temperature. It all depends on what you like. I actually used to have a thermometer, barometer / compass decorative piece, and I don't know where it is. I wish I could find it again. The round mayor stood fast until he caught the eye of the raiders' leader. Then he raised one eyebrow. I can't raise my one eyebrow. The man snapped his fingers, and immediately the horses were still, and the ragged man as silent as the villagers' animals before the unicorn. They put the children gently on the ground and gave back most of the wineskins. "Jack Jiggly, if you please," the mayor said calmly. The leader of the horsemen dismounted and walked slowly toward the table where the councilmen and their guests had dined. He was a huge man, nearly 7 feet tall, and at every step he rang and jangled because of the rings and bells and bracelets that were sewn to his patched jerkin. "Evening, Your Honor," he said in a gruff chuckle. "Let's get the business over with," the mayor told him. "I don't see why you can't come riding in quietly like civilized people." "The boys don't mean no harm, Your Honor," the giant grumbled good-naturedly.
Cooped up in the greenwood all day, they needs a little relaxing, a little catharsis like. Well, to it, eh?
With a sigh, he took a wizened bag of coins from his waist and placed it in the mayor's open hand.
There you be, your honour, said Jack Jiggly. It bean't much, but we can't spare no more than that.
The mayor poured the coins into his palm and pushed at them with a fat finger, grunting.
It certainly isn't much, he complained. It isn't even as much as last month's take, and that was shriveled enough. You're a woeful lot of freebooters, you are. It's hard times, Jack Jiggly answered subtly. We ben't to blame if travellers have no more gold than we. You can't squeeze blood out of a turnip, you know. I can, the mayor said.
He scowled savagely and shook his fist at the giant outlaw.
And if you're holding out on me, he shouted, if you're feathering your own pockets at my expense, I'll squeeze you, my friend. I'll squeeze you to pulp and peel and let the wind take you. Be off now and tell it to your tattered captain. Away, villains!
As Jack Jiggly turned away, muttering, Schmendrick cleared his throat and said hesitantly, I'll have my hat if you don't mind. The giant stared at him. Out of bloodshot buffalo eyes, saying nothing. My hat? Schmendrick requested in a firmer voice. One of your men took my hat, and it would be wise for him to return it.
Wise, is it? Grunted Jack Jiggly at last. And who be you, pray, that knows what wisdom is?
The wine was still leaping in Schmendrick's own eyes.
I am Schmendrick the magician, and I make a bad enemy, he declared. I'm older than I look and less amiable. My hat!
Jack Jiggly regarded him a few moments longer. Then he walked past his horse, stepped over it, and sat down in the saddle. He rode forward until he was hardly a beard's thickness from the waiting Schmendrick.
Now then, he boomed, if you be a magician, do somewhat tricksy. Turn my nose grain, fill my saddlebags with snow, disappear my beard, show me some magic, or show me your heels.
He pulled a rusty dagger from his belt and dangled it by the point, whistling maliciously.
The magician is my guest, the mayor warned.
But Schmendrick said solemnly, Very well, on your head be it. Making sure with the edge of his eye that the young girl was watching him, he pointed at the Scarecrow crew, grinning behind their... Say that 3 times fast. Scarecrow crew. Grinning behind their leader and saying something that rhymed. Instantly, his black hat snatched itself from the fingers of the man who held it and floated slowly through the darkening air, silent as an owl. 2 women fainted, and the mayor sat down. The outlaws cried out in children's voices. Down the length of the square sailed the black hat as far as a horse trough, where it dipped low and scooped itself full of water. Then, almost invisible in the shadows, it came drifting back, apparently aiming straight for the unwashed head of Jack Jiggly. He covered himself with his hands, muttering, Nah, call it off! And even his own men snickered in anticipation. Schmendrick smiled triumphantly and snapped his fingers to hasten the hat. But as it neared the outlaw leader, the hat's flight began to curve, gradually at first, and then much more sharply as it bent down toward the councilman's table. The mayor had just time to lunge to his feet before the hat settled itself comfortably on his head. Schmendrick ducked in time, but a couple of the closer councilmen were slightly splattered. In the roar of laughter, varyingly voluntary, that swept up, Jack Jiggly leaned from his horse and swept up Schmendrick the magician, who was trying to dry the spluttering mayor with the tablecloth.
I misdoubt you'll be asked for encores, the giant bellowed in his ear. You'd best come with us.
He drew Schmendrick face down across his saddlebow and galloped away. Followed by his shabby cohorts, their snorts and bleaches and guffaws lingered in the square long after the sound of hooves had died away. Men came running to ask the mayor if they should pursue to rescue the magician, but he shook his wet head, saying,
I hardly think it will be necessary. If our guest is the man he claims to be, he should be able to take care of himself quite well. And if he isn't, well then, an impostor taking advantage of our hospitality has no claim on us for assistance. No, never mind about him.
Creaks were running down his jowls to join the neck of his brooks of his neck, and the river of his shirt front, but he turned his pale gaze toward the pasture, where the magician's white mare glimmered in the darkness. She was trotting back and forth before the fence, making no sound. The mayor said softly, I think it might be well to take good care of our departed friend's mount, since he evidently prized her so highly. He sent 2 men in the pasture with instructions to rope the mare and put her in the strongest stall of his own stable. But the men had not yet reached the pasture gate when the white mare jumped the fence and was gone into the night like a falling star. The two men stood where they were for a time, not heeding the mare's commands to come back, and neither ever said, even to the other, why he stared after the magician's mare so long. But now and then after that, they laughed with wonder in the middle of a very serious event, and so came to be considered frivolous sorts. And that is where we will end for tonight. Thank you all so much for joining me. I'll see you all next time. Have a great night, y'all.